loading.
There's a picture of us.
All right. Hi, welcome to Concordia University's webinar. My name is Jody LaPlate, and I am currently the EdTPA coordinator, but I do have 5 years of graduate admissions experience. And here's my colleague, Dr. Gerald Gabbard.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar.
So our format for today, we are going to go through and answer some frequently asked questions about Concordia's administrative licensure options. And if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the comments section and we will answer those throughout our time together. So Gerald, I don't know if you knew, but my mom was a principal for many, many years. And so principals, I hold them really close and dear to my heart. Can you tell us some other interesting facts about nationwide about our principals and superintendents?
Sure. Well, I'll tell just a little bit about me as well. I worked in K-12 for 24 years before coming to Concordia, and I was a principal for 9 of those years and a district office administrator for 10 of those years. So I also know the trenches and working in the field and appreciate all of that. But some of the statistics about principals are interesting. Every 2 years, the federal government gets a major update to their data set. And the last time that they had one was in 2017. And the 2017 data showed there were about 90,000 school principals in the U.S. This is public school data, by the way, not private school. And of those 90,000 principals, 54% of them are now women. And this was the second time in the last 6 years or so of the data sets that they have exceeded men as principals. And we keep thinking that that's going to be the trend. We see probably 2/3 of our candidates here at least are probably women in the program, which I just think is awesome. Of course, the data still skews towards elementary, with women more in the elementary, a little less women in the middle school, and then far less in the high school. But still, overall, 54% of all principals are women now, which I think is great. And then as you look at the district level positions, if any of the people listening to this webinar are interested in district level, we still see a pretty strong skewing towards male at the district level, especially for superintendents. There are about 13,700 superintendents in the U.S., and only about 28% of those are women. But that's still a lot higher than it was 10 years ago and even 20 years ago. So we're seeing some good trends that way. So the next data set that I would love to see some increases are for people of color. We still have a lot of long ways to go there, but kudos to women. I think it's really good trend to see.
Thank you. So if someone is in Oregon or Washington and they are considering becoming an administrator, what programs do we offer here at Concordia that would allow them to take that next step?
Sure. You know, the important thing for people listening in is to know that we do only offer licensure for Oregon officially. Yeah. We do service candidates who live in Oregon or Washington or want to get licensure in those 2 states. The nice thing about our program, if you come to us from Washington but complete an Oregon program, it has full reciprocity in Washington. So it's very easy to get our license and then take it back to the state of Washington.
Perfect. Okay. Are there any prerequisites a candidate should consider before applying?
One of the major ones that people may or may not think of is that they need to have some prerequisite experience at the building level. And it used to be just teaching. Well, now they've expanded it so that it's teaching or similar licensed experience for at least 3 years. So it could be teaching, or it could be counseling, psychologist, speech and language pathologist, things like that. Anything that requires a state level school-based license can help to prepare a person to be accepted into the program.
Perfect. And so at Concordia, if you already have a master's degree and you want to become a principal, can you do that?
Yeah, and actually that's the main way that most of our candidates come into the program, is they have an existing master's, most likely in education. They're already working as a teacher or some similar position, and then they complete just a certificate program, which is far fewer credits than they need to do to get an additional master's. Now, if someone comes to us just having a bachelor's in education but is working at a building, they can do a full master's program too. So it's a nice pairing with that, leads to the same license.
Perfect. And then if you're already a building principal and you want to go to the district level, do we have a program for that?
Yeah, we do. It's our professional administrator license program. Now, this one we tend to tailor more to Oregon, because the professional license that is in Oregon is really kind of unique to Oregon. So that one we tend to see mainly Oregon people, but those people who are working at the building level, if you have at least 3 years at the building level, you can pursue your professional administrator license.
Perfect. Okay. How are ways that candidates show us that they have those 3 years of teaching experience before the pre-al or the 3 years of admin before the pro-al?
Right. So the preliminary license or pre-al, people need to fill out the application form for the university. They need to supply a resume, and then they need to complete forms from Washington or Oregon that are provided for state licensure. We use the same forms. In Oregon, they're called peer forms, and admissions will help you get copies of those, and they'll want you to submit them from your employers. Sometimes people have one employer, some have more than one employer, but to verify that the employment has occurred, and it needs to be full-time employment to count. So either 6 years of half-time or 3 years of full-time.
Okay. And your admissions counselor and Gerald will work with you on that too if you're not sure.
Yeah,
so.
if there's ever any question, people can just ask. We'd be glad to help.
Sometimes we'll have candidates apply and their license has expired. Are they still eligible to apply, or what are their steps?
Well, the best answer is maybe. I mean, we always have to check everything in the background, but very often, yes, a person who has an expired license, they just need to renew it. So by the time you're admitted to the university, you have to have an active teaching or similar building level license. Or if you're already as an administrator, you have to have an active administrative credential.
Okay. So if I was a student in the program, what would my schedule look like?
Well, since we're mainly an online program, you wouldn't have a traditional schedule like you would see in a 15-week semester course. All of our classes for online are compacted into 5-week very robust courses that fit into a 5-week schedule. And as far as the schedule goes, it's asynchronous learning, so you would have weekly deadlines, and you would not have to show up for class on a certain day or time, or even come online at a certain time. Some of our faculty offer optional video conferencing using the software that's embedded into our Blackboard program called Collaborate. But that's optional in our program. So basically your weekly schedule is do the assignments that are required, respond to peers in the discussion boards, and reply to your professor and get graded on assignments that you submit, doing your readings and assignments as you go along so that you can meet that. Now, we do offer some campus-based classes mainly for the preliminary license as well. And if you take one of those are offered in 8-week formats, and they still have a Blackboard component to accompany them. But people would come to campus then once a week, usually for a 3-hour session. Okay. And in the summers, they would usually come twice a week for 2 sessions to equal 8 over 4 weeks.
Okay. Nice. Okay. How long does it usually take a student to finish the program?
Well, that's the really nice thing about our program, because it can be somewhat self-paced. Students are not required to complete it within X amount of months or years, but a lot of our students take 18 to 24 months to do the certificate program for the preliminary initial license. And you could do it in as little as 12 to 14 months, but that would be really pushing it. It would be really difficult and probably burn yourself out. So I would actually recommend taking 2 years to do it and just do yourself a favor and not burn yourself out.
Yeah. And so you mentioned that students will take classes, and they're in online. They'll take them at 5-week sessions. Do students take them one at a time? Do they double up? What does that look like?
Our program is set up to be one class at a time because they are pretty intense. There's a lot of content that is jam-packed in the 5 weeks because since it's a licensure program and we have to offer certain things for accreditation as well as to verify that people are eligible for the license, we can't just have them be pretty easy courses. They're actually pretty intense. So we take one class at a time as our model.
You mentioned this a little bit, but just to reiterate, what can a student expect from their readings or their assignments? How much time do folks put in after school, on the weekends?
For our 5-week online courses, we tell people that they should budget at least 10 hours a week. A lot of our classes, though, might take 15 to 20 hours. It's quite a bit of a time commitment. Most of the courses have one textbook and some supplemental readings every week, so you would be expected to read an entire textbook in 5 weeks, plus whatever articles that go along with it or websites that we have people review. But it's a fair amount of reading, and then you have usually 2 discussion posts with peer responses plus a weekly assignment that is due every week of the 5 weeks, and it's fairly similar format throughout the program. So it does involve not only a fair amount of reading, but a fair amount of writing.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's set up so that students can really kind of get in the habit, they can plan out their 5 weeks.
Well, that is the benefit of taking the online course, because everything is structured. You have a weekly schedule of activities that are due on certain dates, and you know exactly what is due when. You can know all of the readings for the entire course up front. So people could plan out and say, well, I know I'm going to be really busy in week 2 because of something at work. So I'm going to read ahead and catch up later on some of the other readings maybe, but I'll do some of these assignments now. You can kind of flex it with your own schedule that way, so long as you still turn things in on time and participate according to the deadlines.
Nice. Good. Okay. What are some of the courses that students might take in the preliminary administrative licensure program?
Well, they have to take 7 required classes. One of them is a foundational course. It's called Leading the School Community. It's kind of the introduction to the principalship, that everybody has to take that class, and it's actually a prerequisite for doing the practicum experience as well. That's an enjoyable course because people get to interview 6 stakeholders that are in their community. They talk to a practicing principal, a practicing assistant principal, because that very often is a role that people might start in. They talk to a secretary, because the secretary is usually the heart of the school.
Yes.
They talk to a classified employee who's not the secretary, so maybe a custodian or an educational assistant, maybe a cook, maybe a bus driver, to kind of get a different perspective. They also have to interview an English learner family, both a parent and a child. This is part of the requirements to meet the standards for the state for English learners, but also gets them talking to families, so they have to interview them. Notice I didn't mention classroom teacher in any of those interviews, because they're already usually teachers, so we're trying to get them to talk to people they don't normally talk to, but that particular assignment is actually one that more students that I've had tell me they like the best in the class, because it gets them talking to people that they might not normally talk to, but then they learn lots of cool things along the way.
Yeah. Nice.
Oh, and then other classes.
Yeah.
So they have to take a human resources and finance class and a school law class. Those 2 sometimes people get a little scared of, because those are not things that we tend to like or think about much when we're teachers. And we tend to maybe shy away from, like the law. Ooh, I don't want to get in trouble with that. Or human resources. Those people get involved when people do bad things, or when unions have to negotiate contracts. Well, actually, there's a whole bunch more to that work than just the negative side. There's actually a very positive side to it. Knowing the law can actually empower you to meet people's needs and do your work effectively. So it's actually knowing how to work through that environment. And then you learn about why we have a lot of laws that provide rights for people. Like there's a famous landmark U.S. Supreme Court case, Tinker v. Des Moines, 1969. And this is the case that went before the Supreme Court that gave students basically the right to have freedom of speech in schools within limits.
Sure.
The reasonable limits are you can't disrupt the school environment, you can't cause a fight to come about because of it, but you do have a right as a student to share your opinion.
Nice.
And that came about as a result of Mary Beth Tinkers and her brother and a few other friends protesting the Vietnam War, 1969, and we talk about that case and other cases, but people learn about why things are the way they are through doing that. It's a little bit of a history course, I guess, in a way.
Nice.
Same with human resources and finance. A lot of the things we learn about in there have legal connections, so you see some cyclical connection to the program, and there's some history to it as well. But then you also learn practical things like, so what if this happened? How might you react? And I do a lot of scenarios in my feedback to students, so they'll respond to something, but then I'll say, okay, so that's a great answer, I love that. Now tell me, what if this happened? And I'll ask them a scenario and try to make it more realistic that way,
Nice.
which people say they value and appreciate. We have a curriculum course, it's about data. They have to do an instructional leadership and classroom evaluation course, so they learn about the Danielson framework in our program, which is one of the leading models that are used out here in the Northwest quite a bit. They also have to take a seminar that prepares them for the practicum. So it's a good variety of courses to kind of give them a foundation that'll prepare them, hopefully, to feel like they're effective coming in as a novice administrator.
And then what if they are already administrators and they're here to get their professional admin license? What are some of the courses they'll take there?
So they can do that program a little bit faster than the pre-AL program. That's a 19-credit certificate program. You can usually do that in about a year if they want to do it all at once. You can also spread it out. So a lot of our building administrators will take up to 7 years to do that program because they might get paid by their employer to take 6 credits every now and then. Not every employer does that, but some do. Or just because of time and not wanting to, like I said, burn themselves out. So you can either take it compacted or take it over time. But they have to take a law class as well, but we delve into equity quite a bit with that class. So you look at the history of some of the equity laws, the civil rights laws in the U.S. That's one of the required courses. They have to take a political change course. They have to take a class on communication and conflict resolution. And they have to make sure that they've met the human resources and finance requirements. So if they come from out of state, they do have to take that HR and finance class to meet Oregon requirements. And our law class that I mentioned just a moment ago would also cover another Oregon transfer requirement. But they also get a few electives in the professional program that we don't allow or have time for really in the preliminary program, so they can choose among some other curriculum classes and things, which I think at that level it's nice to give them some choice.
Yeah, nice. Okay.
And then both programs have to do an internship, which we call the practicum.
Yeah, that was my next question. So, and I'm sure it's a really important part of the program. What does that look like for folks, and how do teachers or administrators do their current job and then also get that practicum experience?
Sure. So for the preliminary license, people have to do a 360-hour practicum. It takes a year, so you have 12 months to do it, and you have to do it in 2 sites. The regulations currently require that you do an elementary experience and a secondary experience. We've actually done that for many years here at Concordia, so we were kind of ahead of the game before they officially put that into the written regulations. You pick a site 1, which is 240 hours. Most people do that at the level they're currently working. So if I'm a middle school teacher, I'll probably do it at middle school. And then you have to do 120 hours at a site that's opposite of the level where you work. Usually with middle school, we send people to the level they've had no experience whatsoever. And I picked in the middle to just show that you could go down or up. Now there's some exceptions. If you already work in a K-8 building with one principal, we're going to make you go to a high school because you need another experience. That's another point of the regulation and the program requirement, is that you get exposed to a variety of schools and settings, because this license prepares people to work as an administrator in any school in Oregon or Washington. So we want them to have as rich of an experience as possible to do that. And then when you do your building level or district level practicum rather, for the professional license, you just do that in one site, 280 hours, but it's district level.
Okay.
So how do people do it? If you're already working as like an instructional coach or a counselor or some role where you're not tied down to a classroom every day, it's actually a lot easier for people. And I would say maybe a good 2/3 of our candidates already are in some sort of a TOSA role or something where they have a little bit of flexibility. But if they aren't, or their schedule's a little tighter, they will have to negotiate with their employer some time off. So maybe they'll use some personal days, maybe they'll flex some time, maybe their principal will work with them to give them the opportunity to do some projects after school. You can't do all of them after school, but there are some tasks that occur that way. Some of the hours, not all of them, can be done in the summer as well, because it's a year-round experience. Then if you're already working as a building administrator, working on the district level, you just have to get time away from your building to go and actually work at the district office doing some things. But some of those projects can also be done in the building on the behalf of the district, but you're going to do some active things like committees and things like that too.
Okay. And how does Concordia support our students in getting that practicum set up? Do we have a special person in place?
We've got a really great placement office, and we have a placement coordinator. Her name's Annie Scott. She's wonderful, and she will help people once they fill out the application to do the practicum, and there are some prereqs. So in the pre-AL program, you have to complete at least 7 credits with us, and you have to have completed the Leading the School Community course and the 500 planning seminar and 1 other class, and then apply and get into that. And then at the district level course, complete 7 credits, 1 of them has to be the 500. Once you're in the practicum, the placement office helps you get into that setting. So they have to set up contracts between Concordia and whoever is taking them on. We actually have contracts with them, agreements. And there are site mentors that are provided by the school or the district. And then we also provide a university supervisor who's a licensed administrator to oversee that candidate when they're doing their experience for the year. So there's a lot of people to support them during that process.
Nice. Thank you. I think you mentioned there are some prereqs before you would start. Do students also take courses while they're enrolled in the practicum, or is the coursework all done at that point?
I would say the majority of our candidates wait and do the practicum toward the end of their experience, and I think that's probably the best way to do it, because it really is intense to take just 1 class at a time, even once you see what has to be done. It can be done where people do courses and the practicum. It just really adds up, because you've got your full-time job usually, you've got the practicum now, which is like another full-time job, and then you're going to add a course on that, which is pretty intense. And then most people have families or other responsibilities outside of work. So, and then, you got to take time for yourself. So there, there's those 5 pretty important things that, it's really too much. So I really recommend that people not do a course when they're doing the practicum. And the best route is to wait, I think, toward the end of the experience. You're going to be more prepared, I think, through your coursework anyway to be successful in the practicum if you wait.
Nice. Okay. Maybe we touched on this, but just want to double check. Is this a cohort program where they just take class after class after class, or is there some flexibility in scheduling things around certain times of year? Can they take a break if they needed to?
Unlike our Master of Arts in Teaching program, which is a very strong cohort model, we actually don't have a cohort at all in our program. This program is designed to be learner-centered and allow choice and flexibility in enrollment. So people can, through rolling starts, they can start almost any time throughout the year. There are 4 opportunities in the year to start a practicum as well. So you can, it's not quite as often as coursework, but 4 times during the year, basically seasonally, we have opportunities to start the practicum as well. There are some unofficial cohorts that emerge, though. Sometimes people end up taking classes, whatever's the next class offered in the schedule, and they end up with some people they've been in class with before. So they might just unofficially have a cohort, and I've been in class with you before, and I've had quite a few students say they've had 4 or 5 classes with the same people, but it's not by design, it's just by chance that way.
And I recently talked to a candidate who said, hi, I'm applying because my coworker just applied, and we're actually hoping to go through the program together. So that those students were kind of self-selecting to be supports and learners together. And
we publish our schedule a year out, so it's technically possible if they wanted to monitor that themselves and work with their advisor that way, they could probably create their own mini cohort that way. And that's kind of the cool part of our choice model.
And this was not in our notes to talk about, but we do have an advisor who will work with you on your schedule. They will auto-enroll you, so you don't have to worry about logging in and figuring out what class to take next.
Right.
So it's another support that we offer our students.
Yeah, it's great that they have that option, a person they could call, and it's a live person. You don't have to, I mean, you might communicate by email with them, but you can call them, and if you're in the area, you can go and see them on campus too.
So TSBC recently redesigned the pre-al, the preliminary admin, and the professional admin requirements. Do you want to tell us some more about those changes?
Sure. So the Teacher Standards and Practices Commission is the licensing body in Oregon, and TSPC sets regulations which have the force of law for the state. And in February of this year, they set some new rules for both types of licenses, as Jody said. First of all, one of the big changes that happened with the preliminary license is it gets a new name again. And I say again because some of you who are listening may know that we used to have a license called the Initial Administrator License in Oregon. That actually went away in 2016 and became the Preliminary Administrator License, although that name still is floated around. A lot of people still call it the IAL, or the Initial License. Well, it's actually the preliminary license until February of 2019 when it became the principal's license. However, with that name change, there are some other requirements that will change in August of 2022, and I'll get into those in a second. But so the name changed, and then there's some programmatic changes that'll come later. And then the professional license actually got a name change too back in 2016. It became the professional license after, for many, many years, being known as the Continuing Administrator License, or the CAL. And we still hear that name floated around, although that has not been the name for over 3 years. And that will stay the professional license, but I'm gonna start with that license first on the big changes that come up in 2022. That license was and will be a 19-credit program for us. Okay. What will change is it's no longer a required license after the initial preliminary principal's license. It's an optional license now. It's only required for people who are moving officially into a district level position or district level responsibility. Some small districts, a principal might serve both. They might be the building principal and the director of HR, and then they would need both licenses. Now, the other license, the principal's license, until August of 2022, that will be on our old requirements. It's currently 22 credits for the certificate or 34 credits for the full master's. Anybody who's looking to start a program between now and, say, the next year from now, I would recommend starting it and getting it done by August of 2022. Technically, on our current university rules, I'm not talking TSPC right now, you can take up to 7 years to do your program. But because the licensure rules are changing, if you don't get it done by August of 2022, you will have to take 5 additional credits to meet the requirement. So then anyone who starts after August of 2022 will be doing a 27 credit minimum program to do the principal's license. Okay. Because the state felt that because the professional license was no longer a required step, they wanted to make the principal's license even more robust to ensure people had maybe some of the content and background that they may have gotten otherwise through the professional program. Okay. So those are some of the big structural changes that are going into place. There'll still be a practicum that has to be done at 2 levels, and a lot of the course titles will stay the same, but an exciting opportunity through the changes is new equity language has been added to the standards. So Oregon has always said, well, we're a kind of an equity-focused state, but that's been in name only kind of and not actually in practice. The opportunity through these new standards is that we can really put it into practice a lot more strongly, and I'm excited about that.
Nice. So what if I'm a teacher now, and in 7 years, I think I want to be a principal? Can I do the program now so I get in under those 22 credits, or do I have to wait until I'm closer to when I actually want to apply to be a principal?
I mean, you could wait, but then you would have to do 27 credits after. But if you do it now, you don't have to use the license for employment. Okay. You can, Under the new rules, you just get that license and then hold it forever, as long as you renew it according to their renewal requirements. So the principal's license is a 3-year license. To renew it, you have to take 6 graduate credits or 90 professional development units. Not a bad deal to get it for 22 credits versus 27, I think. And then you're ready. If you think, well, maybe 5, 7, 10 years down the road, I might want to be a principal, well, then you've got the license, and then you don't have to go and scramble and try to finish up quickly if an opportunity knocks on the door. Same thing for people who are thinking about now getting the professional license, since it's no longer required. I would encourage a principal who has the time now to actually do it, because then when opportunity knocks again, you are ready to go. You don't have to try to do a program when you're taking on a new job.
Yeah.
And by the way, I would recommend that no one ever take a program in your first year in a new job. Whether you're teaching, going into a new teaching position, wanting to do a principal license, wait a year, then start.
That sounds like a safe plan.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you for all of that
You're
about our
welcome.
preliminary and professional options. So folks, if you like everything Gerald just said and you would like to apply, then there should be a slide popping up so you can see our admissions counselor, Tristan Norbert. He is one of our current admissions counselors. And so he's happy to meet with you, answer more questions, chat on the phone. We also want to invite you to the Wine and Cheese event, which is October 28th. If you're in the area, it's at the McMenamins Kennedy School, right near 33rd and Killingsworth. And then, if you're ready to apply, it's a pretty straightforward process. So the application is free, and when you're filling out that application, you will include your supervisor's email address. And so we'll send them a link to a really quick form, and you can get the application and the letter of recommendation completed right away. And then you'll start working on your other materials. So your admissions counselor will send you a transcript release form and the character questionnaire. And so you can get those done right away. And then you will start working on your resume so we can make sure that you have those 3 years of teaching experience, and then your statements of intent. And there'll be 4 prompts that you answer for that, and Tristan will share that checklist with you so you have those 4 prompts. Once we have all of those materials, then we review them, make sure that you are a fantastic candidate for the program, and then Tristan will call you and wish you congratulations. And that's then will get you connected with your academic advisor for picking out your classes. Our next set of classes will start on November 11th, and there is still time to apply for that. And then we do have a little bit of a break, and then spring term starts back up in January. So if November feels too soon, we have some January options for you. You will want to connect with Tristan, though, so you know about the deadlines, and because we have some scholarships for meeting the application deadline, so we don't want you to miss out on that money. Speaking of scholarships, the minimum most students get is around $3,000. So again, you'll want to chat with Tristan and make sure that you get all of those scholarships that you're eligible for. There is a list in our packet and on the website, so you can check those out while you're making plans to chat more with Tristan.
Do we have any questions from our audience?
Yes. Ooh, here is a good question from Jeremy. Thank you, Jeremy. Can you skip the principal's license and go right to the professional license?
No, you cannot. Oregon is actually set up to be a building level emphasis program, and you have to do the principal's license first in order to get to the professional level. Now, some people work at a district office in a classified administrative position. That does not require you to evaluate other licensed personnel, and there are a few other duties that the professional license has outlined in statute. If you can get into a district level position that does not require you to do those regulatory things, you could not even do a program at all and just work at the district level with whatever license you currently have. But if you're going to be doing anything that the professional license in statute lays out that you must have a license to do, you not only have to have the professional license, but to get the professional license in Oregon, you have to have the principal's license.
And then again, how many years would I work in administration under my preliminary before I could then go for the professional?
You have to apply for that license, you have to have worked at least 3 years at the building level. And we really want candidates, preferably when they come to us, to already have 3 years under their belt, because they're a lot more experienced, they're better able to complete the way the courses are completed or set up, because we write questions for people who know building level already. They're not brand new rookies. So it's really better to have some experience under your belt to feel successful in those courses too.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
No.
What other questions do you have?
Let's see. Yep. No, that is all we have so far. So,
Great.
do you have any final thoughts? Anything that our candidates should be thinking about?
Well, I just want to encourage people, if you're on the fence with applying, give us a call. You know, Jody said Tristan is a great resource. He's amazing. He will help you, but if he doesn't know the answer, he's always really helpful to reach out to me, and I am more than willing to talk to any applicants as well if you have questions. Or once you're in the program, if your program advisor doesn't know the answer to the question, you can always call me as well, and I'd be glad to help you, because we believe in making this a learner-centered program. Help and support is my mantra, and I want people to feel like they are supported and helped through the program, because it's not an easy program to do, really.
Sure.
I mean, but it's designed intentionally to be challenging, because we know that being an administrator is a challenging position to be in. We don't want you to end up in a job as a principal or as a district level administrator someday and to not feel like you have zero skills behind you. You know, we're trying to build some capacity in you so that when you graduate from our program, you feel you are better prepared to lead and help students and staff to take your school or district forward. So I'm always here to help you at any time.
That's awesome. One last question. Who are some of our instructors? I know you instruct in the program, but who might our students have as their instructors? Who will they be learning from and with?
So I'm the only full-time faculty member in our program, but we do have a lot of great adjunct faculty, and most of them are retired administrators that have worked mainly as principals, but we do have a couple with district level experience. And then among our university supervisors, the ones that supervise practicums, most of them are also retired administrators because they have the time to do it.
Yeah.
We do have a couple of adjuncts though, and a couple of supervisors who are currently in the field full-time. Nice. And they do this on the side as well. But all of the instructors, all of the university supervisors, regardless if they're currently working or formerly working, they all have been administrators. They all currently hold a license, and they all know and value equity work. They all know and value the content of our program, and they're all still current in their field. So it's pretty exciting that you're working with some very real-world practitioners to learn the ropes.
All right. So, looking one more time. No other questions have popped up, so we want to thank you, Gerald, for being a part of our webinar today. And we have some behind the scenes folks who wanted to stay anonymous, but we thank everyone who's helping us out. Please reach out to Tristan to see how he can help you through the application process. Sign up for the October 28th Wine and Cheese event if you're in town. We will be there.
Yep,
Tristan will be there.
And if you're watching this on demand later and you hear those dates referred to, well, that of course is in the past. But you can still always reach out to us through the information that will be provided on the slides that are shown during this presentation, and we would be glad to help get you in touch with somebody. If you want to set up a campus visit, you could do that as well.
And we do host events throughout the year, so just check out our website for the next event. But again, thank you all for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful evening or day, depending on when you are watching this. And thank you for all you do to support our students and families in our communities.
Thanks for your interest in Concordia, and good luck with your decision.
Thanks.